Good evening. It is 5:30 PM on Tuesday, July 15th, 2025, and this regular meeting of the Sandpoint Planning and Zoning Commission is now called to order in council chambers at City Hall, 1123 West Lake Street, Sandpoint, Idaho. For the record, I am Commission Chairman Mose Dunkel presiding. Also present are Vice Chair Wayne Benner and Commissioners Grant Simmons, Scott Torpy, Reed Weber, Will Mitchell, and Ivan Ramar. If everyone will please stand, we will recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do commission members have any announcements or reports? Okay, hearing none, we will now proceed with the consent calendar. And at this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
So moved. Second.
And moved by Commissioner Benner, seconded by Commissioner Simmons. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes and consent calendar is approved. Next, we'll proceed with matters from the public. If you would like to speak on a topic pertinent to city business that is not included on the agenda, now is your opportunity to do so. If you wish to speak and haven't yet completed a sign-up form, please do so and hand it to staff. The forms are located on the table by the entry doors. If you're attending remotely and wish to speak on matters that are not on the agenda, please raise your hand on Zoom at this time. I would like to make everyone aware that the city does have a policy on public meeting decorum. The rules are posted on the wall just outside of the chamber entrance doors. In summary, I would ask that everyone please be pleasant and respectful. Not make derogatory statements about others, including city staff, not be disorderly or disruptive, no calling out, clapping, or holding up signs, etc. Please note that the commission cannot take testimony on any specific planning or land use related matter or application outside of an official public hearing. As there are public hearings on this agenda this evening, please hold testimony on those matters until the hearing is open. This time is for general comments on topics not included on the agenda and for comments only, no questions or debate. You may contact the mayor or city staff during regular business hours if you have any questions or concerns. When it is your turn to speak, please state your name and whether you reside in the city limits of Sandpoint. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes. Madam Clerk, do we have anybody signed up to speak during the general public comment period?
No, Mr. Chair.
Any hands raised on Zoom?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, well, that concludes the public comment portion of the meeting. Next, we'll move on to the public hearing to consider the preliminary plat for the Great Northern Commerce subdivision. I will now recite the order and procedure for the public hearing. Number one, staff explanation of the subject of the public hearing. Next is a presentation by their applicant or their representative. Any questions should be directed to the applicant at that time. Third, opening a public hearing, at which time the public may provide testimony. Those who wish to testify are required to complete a sign-up form. If commissioners wish to ask questions of the person testifying, those questions need to be posted before the person returns to their seat. The order of those who wish to speak will be as follows. First, in favor, second, neutral, and last, opposed. Fourth, rebuttal testimony from the applicant or their representative. Final questions may be asked of the applicant at that time. However, if new facts are elicited, the public will be given an opportunity to comment on any new facts. Fifth, the public hearing will then be closed for deliberation. No new information may be provided after the hearing is closed, and questions may only be directed to city staff during deliberation. For the record, any written comments received were included in the meeting packet or otherwise provided to the commission if received in time to do so. Before we proceed, I will ask for confirmation from each commissioner that you have had no conflict of interest or ex parte communication regarding this matter. Start with Commissioner Torpy,
No.
Commissioner Weber, or sorry, Commissioner Banner,
No.
Commissioner Weber,
No.
Commissioner Mitchell.
I have a real estate transaction and an adjoining property. But
You have no pecuniary interest in
No.
this.
Not in this
So
project.
money, and you have nothing going on with this property, and you believe you can remain unbiased.
Yes.
Commissioner Simmons,
None.
Commissioner Reimer,
Nope.
and I have none myself. I will now yield the floor to City Planner Bill Dean for an introduction to this application.
Thank you, Chair. And just by way of interruption and just quick announcement, if you'll indulge me, we're asking that agenda item number 5 related to the request for extension of conditional use permit PCP 23004 be removed from the agenda so that we can properly put that on the agenda for a future date. So there's really no staff report on that. I just want to, just in case there's members of the audience or somebody listening that's interested in that item, we're gonna have to bring that one back, pull it off the agenda tonight and bring that back another time.
Do you have a sense of when that'll be?
It will not take long. It's going to be as soon as we possibly can.
Gotcha.
Yep.
We have a full agenda tonight, so I don't think
Yep.
that should be a problem.
So that's officially,
We do not need a motion on that.
Okay.
thank you so much for that quick announcement. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to, first of all, thank you so much for being here this evening. I'm going to give the presentation. Jason's going to queue up the slide deck so I can walk through this. But first, I'd like to thank the city staff that have been involved. This, I'll be presenting. Eric Brubaker did the bulk of the work on the staff report. Katie Keeney and Mandy Brown were involved in the final details of packaging this agenda item and pulling up the PowerPoint presentation. Of course, Brandon Straglin and Jason and I worked very closely getting it done. So just to give you a sense that there's a lot of hands, a lot of eyes on these projects as they come before you. So thank you to them. This evening, we're talking about your role as an advisory capacity, that, preliminary plats pursuant to the code go to city council for approval. So really, this is the first step, the hearing with you, and then it goes before city council. We're talking about a property that's on Woodland Drive, just to the east of Great Northern Road, next to the Amazon facility that's being developed right now. Can we go to the next slide, please? This is a recent photograph taken looking south of the property. We've been working with Big Creek Land Company, the owner. It's roughly just shy of 16 acres. Proposed to take this parcel and divide it into 21 lots. It's going to drive its access primarily off Woodland Drive on a new road called Commerce Drive. You'll note on the plat that there's the creation of a new stub road called the Innovation Drive that's going to provide access to the west and eventually hopefully connecting all the way over to Great Northern. So that's been accommodated and provided for here. Limited opportunity to do that anywhere else, namely to the east because of the existing development pattern there. But essentially that's what we're looking at. It's relatively straightforward. This is what the actual plat looks like. Common to these preliminary plats, you're going to see the easements that have been listed and provided for utilities and connections, storm drainage, things like that. What's interesting about this particular plat, if you can go to the next slide, is that it's zoned industrial general, and the lot sizes here vary between 25,000 and 34,000 square feet. The minimum size for a lot in this zone district is an acre. Yet we're able to go below that because the zoning provisions say if there's going to be common access and maintenance easements provided across the plat, such that the development can operate as a uniform development, you're able to reduce that lot size. So the developers provided for those, and the project is conditioned to perform that way. So that shared access and common maintenance of landscaping I thought was a unique feature that enabled this to happen. I think that's kind of significant because understanding from the property owner, they're trying to have a project that's attractive to someone who may want to come in and buy 1, 2, or 3 or more of these lots, but enables a smaller, gradation in the size and provide that to the marketplace to see what local businesses might be able to start there. So I thought that was an interesting approach, given the proximity to some larger parcels nearby. There is a little piece, a portion of Block 1, Lot 14, those proposed lots, that's encumbered by the overlay of the airport, which is shown on the next slide. Sorry, right there. Go back one, Jason. Right there, you can see it just clips the southeastern corner. It's just for the record, when building permits come in, there's going to be additional review. Things have to get routed to FAA for their approval. That's not something that's typically something the FAA looks at this stage, but rather as you go in toward the development phase of building permits, they look at that. But it's there, so nonetheless, just want to make you aware of that. Let's go to the next slide. So as normal, with plats, we take these to the Ped Bike Committee. That was Brandon Stragland took that to the committee on May 8th. There was an agency notice that was done in June. It yielded responses from the 5 listed agencies there. No comments other than Northern Light saying we're happy to provide, power as needed. The FAA deferred commenting really until the building permit phase, until they can actually see what's actually proposed in terms of building heights, things like that, what they're interested in. And BNSF has been working with the city on Great Northern Road, and given the fact that that capital improvement project is going through its maturation because a grant wasn't received that we were hoping to get, there's continued dialogue with them in the nature of what the improvements might look like with the Woodland intersection. So they were just commenting that there's this ongoing process that the city is involved in, but nothing specific to this project. And of course, it was posted on site. So let's go to the next slide. So like any project that comes before you, that's a plat or a permit, it's good practice and it's appropriate to look at comp plan consistency, even though the comprehensive plan does speak and oftentimes in very broad goals and statements. I think it's a couple relevant policies we pulled from goal 3 and goal 7 in the land use section with respect to diversifying the mix of commercial industrial uses to help maintain a diverse economy. You have to have sites available for when businesses want to come. It's an attractive, from an economic development perspective, have a portfolio of available land so that sector can perform. Additionally, like any plat, we're going to be looking for opportunities for connectivity. And stubbing streets to the west, like this plat does, achieves that. It's altogether appropriate that we should be thinking about what would happen to the west, in time. So leaving that substreet enables that. Right now, I want to pull the plat up again really quickly. Jason, if you go back a slide, I want to talk just briefly about the southern edge of this project. And if we have to pull up an aerial photograph, we can. But there's development to the south of this is actually partially developed. And it's developed off a cul-de-sac bulb that if you look at an aerial photograph, they sort of closely butt up against one another. So even though we haven't put a condition of approval on this plat, I think it's appropriate to mention that since there is a drainage easement proposed right here, as you can see along the southern edge of this for storm drainage purposes, and whereas we don't have any easements from the development to the south, given the fact that it's not entirely developed, maybe there's a chance that could happen in the future. It's worth discussing whether or not it's appropriate to think about amplifying that drainage easement to include pedestrian ped bike access through there for the potential eventuality of something to the south. We know that we have, through our planning efforts, connectivity planned for bike and ped along Great Northern and Woodland and North. But in as much as that's a planned concept, it's always best to try to fill out the opportunities as they come. So late in the process, we identified this as an opportunity, spoke with the property owner about it. They're willing to make whatever, obviously can make whatever kind of statements they have this evening. Keep in mind that if we were to add and amplify that easement to allow for ped bike, it would have to be done in such a way that doesn't interfere with the basic need of the infrastructure function for storm drainage there. And if we have questions about that, Brandon Staglins here can help us with that. But I did want to bring it to the commission's attention that we are thinking about those things, should we want to have that discussion this evening. So we didn't make it a condition, but I think it's worth talking about at a minimum. So comp plan consistency, we talked a little bit about that. Zoning compliance summary, we're furthering the objectives of the comp plan by the jobs generating land use. This definitely implements the industrial general zoning, provides for access and maintenance easements to enable us to go down below 1 acre. We were compliant with the public noticing, and we did want to note for the file that a complete wetlands study was done in 2021, clearing the site. Let's go to the next slide. So these are the details that Brandon can speak to should questions arise. We have infrastructure that's proposed to be compliant with city standards. There's a number of easements provided along the frontage of these lots, as well as in some cases behind for storm drainage and electricity. There are connections between lots 1 and 2 of Block 2, allowing for connections of water and sewer to hook into sewer and utility lines that are to the west of the existing site. Again, these are things that plats have to come in and they have to comply with these regulations. Bless you. And part of our review is to ensure that it does so. So let's go to the next slide. Because of the distance along this new public right-of-way coming off Woodland is longer than I think it's more than 800 or so feet. It's been required to put in a mid-block crossing to be installed across that would line up with the driveway going into the Amazon facility to provide some additional connectivity. I think the details around that are something that we could have Brandon speak to if we have questions. But the project's been conditioned to include that mid-block crossing, just a matter of complying with our policies about not having the opportunities to cross these streets being larger than a certain distance. Something we should talk about if you have questions, and we can pull up the plat again and show you where that occurs. In fact, let's do that really quickly. Please, if we pull up one more, Jason, let's go back to this example right here. There's a driveway. If you look at this exhibit right here, there's a driveway about midway down that large parcel up on the top of the screen. JC, if you want to just kind of hover over where the Amazon facility is, there's a mid-block crossing in that vicinity right there. And the reason why it's located there is it lines up with the driveway to Amazon, and it's the distance from Woodland all the way down to that new stub street is quite lengthy. That's why it's provided. So let's go back to the final slides and we'll wrap it up for you. So we have a number of conditions of approval, which is common for a plat or a permit, dealing with the maintenance, common access and maintenance. For example, the typical things you'd see on conditions of approval related to utilities and things that have to be performed prior to final plat. Let's go to the next slide. And these are all very common. We're at your disposal to talk about any of these conditions of approval. Let's go on to the next slide. And again, your action tonight is in advisory capacity. There are a number of conditions on the project. You can approve this with condition. You can postpone it if you want to have a discussion about things. You have the option to deny the application. With that, we're going to conclude the presentation. We're here to talk about anything, including that connection possibly to the south, whether that's advisable or not. And if you had questions about how we arrived at where to put that mid-block crossing, we can get into that as well. So thank you, Chair. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Bill. Commissioners, do you have any questions for staff at this time? Mr. Simmons?
Mr. Chair, yeah, thanks. Hey, so are we thinking like manufacturing, like fabrication, sort of, right?
That's exactly what the zone district
Yep.
anticipates.
Yep.
So having this space that's a little more divisible could facilitate a
Yeah,
smaller
nice
scale.
bin fill, yeah. So, what I don't know about transportation planning could fill novels, so I won't pretend to be an expert. But presupposing that there's lots of 18-wheelers in and out of there all the time, is that a consideration? When does traffic study come in relative to actual what's fit for purpose there? Like, how does that sort of work itself out?
Great question. I probably should have touched on that. And at this point, I'd like to ask Brandon to come up and he can answer these questions. There was a traffic study performed for this, and he can speak to the outcomes of what
All right.
that.
And while we got you up here, I got a second one, which will probably involve you, which will be around the drainage easement and the potential multimodal, like satisfying that in terms of PED and like, I just speak to some options. Like what would some options be, for instance?
Sure. So with the traffic study, how our rules are written is that actually all new development that contributes more than an estimated 300 average day trips is required to do a traffic study. So you typically do a much smaller, like single page report that an engineer typically provides, and literally all they're doing is estimating the total number of trips that it's contributing to see if you trigger that. In this specific case, they did trigger a traffic study, so that's included in the application materials. The results of it, in short, are that it did not show, it looks at neighboring intersections to see if the trips from this development will drop the level of service of those intersections below our minimum level. It didn't show that it moved any intersections from passing to failing, except for like pretty much all the traffic studies we do. The Boyer and Baldy intersection is projected to fail within the next several years, regardless of any new development. So
Got it.
we did not include any conditions
Got
related
it. So
to.
it's
offsite
baked
traffic.
into the pudding as we speak. Meaning, in terms of what actually winds up in those 17 plats, the traffic study's already been accounted for.
Right.
Got it.
Yeah, so if for whatever reason, they, somebody, bought one of those lots and proposed a totally different building than was envisioned, than was assumed in that traffic study, then it would kind of be staff's responsibility to say,
To say we got to take a look.
listen, we got to take another look at it. For, just a really wild example, if somebody's going to build a 15-story apartment building on one of those lots, that's going to be a lot different traffic assumptions than an industrial. That's obviously not going to happen because it's prohibited by zoning, but just as an example.
Gotcha.
And then with the easement, it's pretty simple. I mean, you can have, right now, what's shown on the drawings in front of you are stormwater easements across those lots, and basically the point of that is so that they can maintain the stormwater improvements across those easements, so they have the right to get onto other properties to maintain stormwater. It's set aside for stormwater, so you can't build stuff on it. But there is the opportunity, you can overlay easements on top of each other. So, you could very easily add a pedestrian access easement over the top of any of those
Okay.
stormwater
Okay.
easements. How it actually gets constructed, I don't
Yeah.
know. I do know that the design engineer for this greatly oversized the detention pond at the south end of that cul-de-sac to account for, just the general drainage issues in that area. So it's oversized beyond what our code requires. So there would be an opportunity, if we ever got to that point, to connect some pedestrian trails. We could build up essentially a dike in the middle of that and add some culverts or whatever in order to get some sort of path across that stormwater pond in the future. And then again, they would just work with the city engineering staff to figure out how to make that work.
Cool. Thank you.
Commissioner Torby?
I have a question for Bill regarding the subject of common parking and landscaping, which enabled these smaller lots. And I'm looking at a drawing that was in the project materials folder. It's the last drawing 7 of 7, and it's a typical conceptual lot design. I'm just trying to make sure that this is what triggers that allowance for a smaller lot, where it shows two adjoining lots, and they seem to share their parking. There's devoted parking to each lot, but there's a common entrance on the property line between the two lots. And then there are stormwater detention swales, it seems. They're not called that, but that's what it looks like to me. On each property line, on the extremities of this, the outside of this drawing. So is that the common parking and landscape, or is there something else I'm missing, that it's common to all of them? What does the word common mean in that?
The way I look at the word common is that you have to be able to get from one of these lots to the next without getting on the road. And that's why there's a parking easement. See, site development hasn't been organized for anything specific on any given lot because we're just creating lots at this point. But when the condition states that you have to have reciprocal access and maintenance agreements recorded across these lots, the only reason to have that is such that you don't have to go out of the public right of way and come back in. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the requirement. So whether or not this is what the zoning ordinance intended, it can be used. So you have a situation where you can drive into one business and get to the next business, the next business, the next business, as if it were some kind of a business campus along with one driveway instead of one at each parcel.
Without going on Commerce Avenue. or whatever it's
Correct.
called.
That's right.
Okay, so that's not what's shown here, because this would be strictly a common entrance for two adjoining parcels. And well, if you call it up, you can see what I'm talking about, but I mean, then it would defeat the storage, the stormwater storage, which I assume is for the stormwater that's generated on the parcels themselves, and the drainage easement we just finished talking about is the stormwater generated on the street and sidewalks, which it seems by the equation, that's what they're talking about there. So,
Right.
so,
Is this the exhibit you're looking at right here?
no, keep scroll, it's all at the end of, it's drawing 7 of 7, preliminary plans.
You have the agenda pulled up. Give me 1 second. We'll put it up on the screen.
There it is. Right there.
Right. So in order for any one lot to be able to not be an acre, you have to have a way for you to get from one lot to the next.
To the next, to the next, to the next, right? I mean, it's got to be
See, that's
continuous.
that's a matter of interpretation. So it's hard to say what the drafters of this code envisioned, but technically, if you provide access from one lot to the next, you've met it, and then you've got another 2 lots, as long as they're connected, you've met it.
Okay, so,
But if the commission desires this thing to be performed differently, you can certainly make that comment. But I think that answers your question. I hope it answers your question. The intent is that if you're gonna go less than an acre, you have to be able to have direct access off the right of way between the parcels.
okay, so if it's like what's shown here,
Right.
and it's done, 13 times or whatever it is.
Right.
Right? That there is some common agreement among all lot owners that all of that landscaping and all that parking and everything is going to be maintained
That's right.
uniformly, right? Okay,
That's the condition. It has, see, the ordinance says it's limited in what it says, but that's exactly what it arrives at. The whole intent is there's common access. You can get from one parcel to the next without getting on the right of way. And the landscaping across those 2 properties is going to be under common maintenance. So the property owner has to pass that test when they, prior to final plat, submit those CC&Rs to us that demonstrate that they can perform that way.
Okay, so long as, I just really want to understand what it meant, and you're telling me that this will pass, this will work.
This is the basic minimum.
Okay,
It could be done such that you have a connection from one parcel all the way through to the others. That's another way that could be done, but
Okay.
minimum, this meets the requirement.
okay,
Yep.
okay. Okay.
Any more questions?
I have a question.
Commissioner Mitchell?
Brandon, has there been any talk with the developer or the landowner about underground water storage like they had at the new apartment development by the fairgrounds?
No, there has not. It's simple water main extension with utility services stubbed to each lot.
I think you're talking about stormwater,
Stormwater, yeah.
and you're talking about
Oh,
Sorry.
potable water.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for clarifying. No, there hasn't. They were like I said, our stormwater code has specific, what we call performance standards that say you have to provide X volume of detention for slowing down the 25-year storm. And secondly, that you have X amount of volume in a shallow swale to provide enough treatment for the impervious surfaces that are created. Those two performance standards were met based on the preliminary improvement plans that are included in the package. So you'll typically see underground stormwater tanks as storage when it's the last available option. So in urban areas, I see it where there's just literally not enough room to put surface detention ponds and swells.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Weber?
Question about the amplifying that easement for pedestrian and bike access. Would that basically just be a description
Yeah.
added on to that easement area that's already noted on the survey?
Yeah, if it was chosen to be added as a condition, they would add it to the preliminary plat, essentially. And then it gets actually created with the final plat.
Okay, and like the boundary that was shown on the plat.
Yeah,
now would
it
not-
could either be contiguous with the existing stormwater easement, and it could be called a stormwater and access easement, or it could have different limits. It would look kind of messy, but that's totally a thing that happens. You just draw different easement lines and define it with dimensions on the face of the preliminary plat.
Yeah. And can you speak to where that might connect to in the future? Surrounding lots?
It's totally speculative because you just don't know what's going to happen with neighboring private property. But my best guess is you might get a multi-use trail heading directly west along the south side of this property and continuing through the neighboring property to the west to connect to the future Great Northern multi-use path, which is not funded right now, but the preliminary plans we have for that project show a multi-use path on the east side of Great Northern. So it could connect to that in the future.
I'll add to that just a little bit, Commissioner, that looking right here at the aerial photograph, like I mentioned, there's an existing development just immediately to the south, right there. But especially the parcel on the right there with it, that shows the vehicles, that's potentially underdeveloped. And there's always an opportunity that maybe we could talk with that project when it comes forward to see if there's a willingness to provide such a connection. Not every property owner is going to be interested in that, but again, if we could go back in time, maybe this particular Air Park Court wouldn't have been bulbed out right there. It would have been bulbed out farther to the north, providing opportunity for a road to go all the way through, but it wasn't. So this is just an effort to try to look for those opportunities. So that's what we're trying to do here. And like Brandon said, it's completely speculative, but I know one thing for sure, if we don't have the easement across that storm drainage, the conversation's over.
And I also would just add that, typically your opportunity to force those conditions on private development is when they ask for something like a CUP or a subdivision where you have the authority to add conditions. Typically, if somebody's coming in with a building permit, I don't know if the code justifies us requiring all sorts of additional easements, but when they're asking for approval from the city on a larger development. So that's totally possible. For example, if that lot that Bill was mentioning there with all the cars on it was doing something that zone required a conditional use permit, that would be an easy opportunity where the city could require that happened.
Yeah, I would just say you never know. I've worked with a lot of businesses that want to be the employer of choice. They want to have an easy way for their employees to get to and from work, and I've seen all kinds of creative things, be requested from the private sector. So, you just really don't know. It's hard to say that it would have to happen in this fashion or another fashion. I just know that if we don't have something there, well, we really sort of ended that conversation. But again, this was brought up very late in the process, and we spoke with the property owner very, very late in this process. Just trying to see if there's an opportunity there, so.
Chairman, do we have the
Corby.
authority to require it? I'm a little confused on that, so. As a condition of approval, can we?
You
Essentially require-
you can impose that. I believe you could do that. Whether or not it's advisable, given the development patterns,
Well, it's just an
Another-
easement. I mean, we're not imposing any cost of construction, right? I mean, it's just an easement to do something.
That's right. That's why I said amplify these, because it's already being provided for storm drainage. Is whether or not you want to give the city the ability, because an easement's a property right. So the property right's already going to be conveyed to the city. It's whether or not we want that described to be able to let the city do a little bit more with it.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Simmons.
do we have a sense of the, like, build out timing? Meaning, let's say we get through approval tonight, how soon till the first tenant could be in?
I think it's a great question for the owner.
Okay,
Yep.
yeah.
I have no sense of when that would be.
And on that note, let's invite the applicant
Love it.
up to the podium to
What a
do their
segue.
presentation. For the record, please state your name and who you are representing as pertains to this application. Welcome.
Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Drew Dittman with Lake City Engineering, 126 East Poplar Avenue in the city of Coeur d'Alene, for the record, representing Big Creek Land Company tonight. Do appreciate Bill and Brandon and the staff for working with us on this. And I had put together a little PowerPoint, but those guys covered 99% of what I wanted to show tonight. The staff report was very, very thorough. So I'll just cover a couple of points and answer some questions and maybe clarify a few of the questions you guys had earlier. So we've got about 15.6 acres. We're proposing 21 industrial lots. This is actually phase two, what we're calling phase two of the Great Northern Project. Phase one was a short plat that we did within the last year to create the lot on the corner there for the Project Bulldog for the Amazon site. We did that through the short plat process because that's a much quicker process to create the lot to get that project going. This is what we're calling phase two of it, is to create these additional 21 lots to kind of complement that Amazon project. So again, it's in the industrial general zone. Lot sizes are about a half acre to 3/4 of an acre. We've kind of discussed that cross parking connectivity. And if Commissioner Torpe's questions didn't get answered, I can elaborate a little bit on that exhibit if you'd like me to. The pet access issue, as Bill had said, it did come up late in the game. We got a call from those guys last week about it. We are 100% willing to work with staff on whatever easement is necessary to get that pedestrian access either to the south or to the west or to whatever form that's in. Again, that swale, we've got all of our storm drainage on that south side. We've completely oversized that by about a factor of 4. So we have enough wiggle room in there to accommodate some kind of pedestrian access, whether it's through, like Brandon had said, through a dike with some culverts in it or something. We'll get creative on that. We're willing to work with staff on that. If you guys feel the need to make that a condition of approval tonight, we're more than happy to live with that requirement. If you, Jason, oh, he left. Can you pull up that, Bill, the 2-lot exhibit, and I can kind of elaborate a little bit on that, maybe? That was merely an conceptual example of what could be done. It wasn't to say that that's the only option. It was to show how 2 lots could work together, have shared access, shared parking. Now, if that were to continue to 3 lots, 4 lots, certainly can do that. That wasn't to say this is the only way to do it. It was just an example of how it could be done.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Sure.
So yeah, we understand that we've got to provide that cross parking maintenance agreement will be done through the CCNRs. That'll get submitted at the time of final plat, obviously get reviewed by staff to make sure that we've got all our I's dotted and T's crossed in that manner. So and any other questions for me? Cliff Mort representing, he's the owner of Big Creek. He's here tonight. I don't know if he's want to talk or if you've got questions for him, he can certainly answer some questions as well. But I think Bill and Brandon have more than adequately covered the project tonight.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Torpe, I think you're up
Oh,
first.
yeah, go ahead, please. Sorry.
Okay. Well, I have a question about the information on the same sheet that we were looking at with that example, that typical conceptual plan. It's a table of your stormwater calculations for the sizing of that and the oversizing of the.
Okay.
If you just scroll up, too far. Or, yeah, scroll up. There you go.
Nope.
And it looks like you've taken 5-minute slices of a hydrograph and calculated the rainfall intensity for those incremental periods of time from the beginning of the storm. And you've selected, it looks like you've selected the maximum volume for a 5-minute period, which would occur somewhere around 105 minutes into the storm.
Mhm.
It also looks like there's no water leaving this thing. There's no water
Can you scroll back to the,
exiting the stormwater
Right there.
storage basin.
Yep.
Right? I mean, it's
Mhm.
V out is 0 all the time.
correct. So this, like, again, we have completely oversized this stormwater retention from a preliminary standpoint, just to make sure that we've got enough room for whatever is going to go in here. So when we create this hydrograph, the hydrograph looks like a big bell curve.
Right.
Where you've got your peak storage, and your storage is the volume under the curve.
It's the total
Yeah,
volume under the curve.
Correct.
And what I think you've got in this what you've got in this calculation is that 5-minute strip of volume at 105 minutes.
It's not, it's cumulative. So that column that you see on the left or the right-hand side, storage is a cumulative. So that accounts for the maximum amount of volume under that curve. But it's taken a slice every 5 minutes in order to create that graph. So you've got time on one axis and storage on the other axis.
Well, I'm confused at 40 minutes, and I don't mean to go into details here, the volume went down. So the the volume in went from,
That's a purely mathematical equation, and that's just how the math works out.
but, okay. So what you're saying is that, that the total volume of this storm from minute number 1 to minute number 120, I guess, is the total volume is 5,900 cubic feet,
Sure. Yes, 5816
5,900 cubic
at
feet.
that given time in the storm event. So it's a mathematical, and again, this was purely conceptual. So once we get into the final engineering, we'll submit all these calculations. Brandon will review them. We'll talk about it. It'll be a much more detailed stormwater analysis than this. This was very preliminary in order to roughly size. This is not the be all end all. This was just so that we could set aside enough land that we had for stormwater detention.
Sounds good. Okay. And the other was that, related to the end of the road there, there's a note in, I think, your project report, project description, that's where snow storage is going to be. Some snow storage is going to be at the end of the road, which makes sense. You're just going to plow the snow down and it's going to land right in this detention basin. And then the third thing was from the wetland study, and these are all hydric soils, which are defined as permanently or seasonally saturated by water. So I'm wondering if, given those factors, any allowance, when you're doing the final analysis of the needed detention volume, if there is some factor of safety or some other factor that you apply to accommodate both the snow storage and the hydric soils.
Absolutely. Again, as Brandon talked, your code requires certain criteria, and we examine a certain storm event for a certain length of time. These are preliminary calculations that show that we've got, based on this, there's a factor of safety of over 4 already in the design that we have, way above and beyond what's required by the city. And when we get into the final engineering, again, we'll submit all these calculations to Brandon and his team, and they can certainly look at it. And there's definitely going to be a factor of safety in it, because we understand the soils that are here, and you're not going to get good infiltrations, and you're not going to get good drainage. So there's definitely, we'll take that into consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Simmons.
Yeah, the question about timeframe.
Yeah.
Yeah, so assuming what's the sort of timeframe between, what's the build out plan relative
So we had
approval
showed,
tonight to first tenant in?
yeah, so we had showed on the plat two phases, we called a phase A and a phase B, and it was about in the middle. So our plan is to put the infrastructure in that Commerce Drive for the first half, if you will, of those lots as soon as we can get approvals from city council. We're already working in-house on engineering plans, assuming we're gonna get approvals, so we get that submitted. Our plan is to get those first 10 lots or so in as soon as we can.
Cool. Thank you.
Any more questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Okay, we'll now proceed with the public hearing. We'll first call on those who wish to testify in support of this application, then those who are neutral, and finally those who are opposed. Again, if you wish to testify, particularly on testimony that would not repeat comments already made, please complete a sign-up form and hand it to staff. Please indicate on the form whether you are in favor, neutral, or opposed. Before we go, do we have people signed up, Madam Clerk?
No, Mr. Chair, we do not.
Okay, I'm not gonna read the rest of this then. Nobody would like to speak in favor, opposed, or neutral to this application? Nobody on Zoom?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay. In that case, the public hearing is now closed.
All right, Mr. Chair, did you open the public hearing?
I open the public hearing and then we close the public hearing since
Thank you.
there was no public to hear. Thank you to the public for that. Let's see. Well, I guess I did skip one small part. If commissioners had any final questions before we close for the applicant. Okay, now we're officially closed. Commissioners may ask questions of staff during our deliberation period. Commissioners, any questions for staff? Now would be the opportunity. And if there's no questions, then I would be looking for a motion. There's a motion.
Let's see, I would say, what is our motion gonna look like? I'd say there's a lot to love in this project. Are we allowed to deliberate over this?
Yeah, we're deliberating. Yeah.
I'd say this, and I'll throw this out for the crew then, is I think there's a lot to love in this project. Thanks to city staff for pulling together super solid report. It all seemed relatively well thought out, straightforward. To our benefit, you know, Commissioner Torpe, I always appreciate you digging into a detail that I would have never even thought to have looked at.
There's more to this than.
Yeah. Fascinated. And I appreciate the fact that we're keeping our eye on a big, I think, cornerstone of the comp plan, which is multimodal connectivity relative to pedestrian and biking and keeping our eye on that. In terms of the build out of this thing, for the developers, I'd recommend, you've got neighbors to the north that are residential. And so when you think about landscaping, and I appreciate the fact that you've been very sort of willing to accommodate lots of considerations in this. You can ask them what they want. What do they want to see every day when they wake up? So anyway, and I think there's a lot in the comp plan that wasn't even listed here that this is in support of. And I hope that tons of folks in and start making a ton of cool stuff in a really neat little innovation park, or what could be, up there. So I would motion to approve with the noted conditions as city staff has identified, plus the consideration of pedestrian and biking connectivity to the south side relative to the stormwater collection, and motion to approve.
Well, can I ask a question about
Yeah.
that? Like, where are you gonna go? South to Air Park Lane and then back out to GN Road? Like, I'm not sure what kind of connectivity that provides, I mean, I can understand putting the property right into the approval. But oh, sorry. Thank you. Sorry. But,
I just wonder, like, does that really, if we're gonna have a pedestrian and bike lane on the east side of GN Road, what kind of connectivity are we really?
To the table.
Yeah, I mean, cause like, what are you gonna do? Like walk past, a couple of shops and Gomi's cars sitting out in the parking lot of the guy, of a storage unit?
Commissioner, I'm taking your comment as to your other commissioners.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
No, I mean, I'm just wondering, like, how does that really improve mobility? I mean, I guess you can always put the property right in there as an easement or an addition to the easement and not exercise it, right? Is that right, Zach?
Yes.
Okay.
Again, I'm a little confused because I'm not related.
No, I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud.
I guess my consideration is without some sort of thought as to pedestrian throughput,
Mhm.
you've got just a big pit that collects water and does nothing otherwise. So that's my sort of thought. And you see a lot of those around and they sort of look like garbage, in my opinion. So that's why I like thinking of that.
Yeah, I'll just add, I think that it creates the opportunity for that pathway to potentially go in if other connections don't occur with the road being developed further north. That might not happen for so many years. Who knows when the sidewalk will go in on Great Northern even. So it's like,
Yeah.
at least creates more flexibility for the future opportunity.
And Mr. Chair, no offense to our neighbors to the south in Coeur d'Alene, but in terms of connectivity, that city's garbage, right? You can't get from the east to the west. And the like getting from neighborhood and place to place is pretty cut off. And I like the fact that we bake that into our comp plan and I like keeping our eye on it. So that's my 2 cents.
This motion's still on the table.
I think the motion's still live.
We don't have a
I'm
motion.
looking at our attorney. I motion to approve.
We don't have a motion.
Okay,
There's no motion.
okay, there's no motion.
There was a discussion of maybe a
Okay.
motion.
All right.
Second.
I would,
motion.
yeah, but we don't even have a move. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's start with a motion first. And
Mr.
where are
Chair.
we, are we just at a level of, we're just a motion to approve? And if we want to include, I mean, I don't know how we include the easement for PED.
Just as it was suggested.
Okay,
So, Mr. Chair?
yes,
I'll take another stab at it. I'll motion to approve contingent on the conditions already identified by city staff and with consideration of pedestrian and bike crossing to the south side adjacent to the stormwater collection.
And do we want west as well? Along the western.
Yeah, what was the western part?
well, to the west of the road.
Yeah, I was just around the south side.
Okay.
Given the fact that there's given the fact that there's an easement already drawn there, it probably makes sense to just amplify that area for storm drainage and ped bike access. So that way it could go anywhere within there.
As stated by city staff.
Anywhere in that storm drainage easement, right?
How about anywhere in a storm drainage easement could also be flexible as a multimodal easement as well?
Correct.
Okay, so amended? Or we're not even, we're still on the final, in the initials.
Sure, so the added condition is understood, which I think staff understands.
Okay,
And I think it's ready to go.
okay. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Benner. This will be a roll call vote.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
Commissioner Benner,
Yes.
Commissioner Simmons,
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchell,
Yes.
Commissioner Remar,
Yes.
Commissioner Dunkel,
Yes.
Commissioner Torby.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, motion passes.
All right, thank you.
Stumbled through it.
Okay, next on the agenda is a second public hearing and recommendation decision for elimination of Sandpoint's area of impact. Again, if you wish to testify, please complete a sign-up form and hand it to staff. Because this is not a quasi judicial hearing, if there are members of the public on Zoom who wish to speak, we will take remote testimony on this matter. We will begin with staff presentation followed by commissioner questions. Then we'll open the hearing to public testimony. After the public hearing has been closed, we will proceed with commission deliberation and a recommendation decision. I will now yield the floor to Community Planning and Development Director Jason Welker.
Good evening, Commissioners. This will be a very brief staff presentation. Just as a matter of little bit of background, I think it was back in March that we had probably our biggest public hearing of the year here with over 40 members of the public who came out, many of whom came up to speak about the proposal. At the time, the proposal was to shrink our area of city impact, which is visible on the left as the pink outlined area. That's 12.3 square miles, extending well up into the Little Sand Creek watershed and up onto the flanks of Baldy Mountain. The proposal was to shrink that area to a 3.4 square mile area, highlighted in blue in the figure on the right. The impetus for this was a new state statute that required that areas of impact, not areas of city impact, they took the city out of the title, could no longer extend more than 2 miles beyond city limits. And the other key piece of language in the new state law was that areas of impact can only include areas that are highly or very likely to be annexed within 5 years. And that proved to be what I would describe as maybe the death sentence for our area of impact. This body did approve the proposed area seen on the right. City Council further approved the proposal for that area. And then on June 16th, myself, the planners from Dover, from Priest River, from Hope and East Hope and Clark Fork, we all went to the Bonner County Commission. There was a half-day long meeting where we all got up and presented our proposed areas of impact. Mercifully, Sandpoint was able to go first along with Dover. And I forgot to mention Pondere and Kootenai as well. So all the cities in Bonner County were at that meeting. The reason they put Dover and Sandpoint first was because we had this little area on the southern portion of the map on the right, which was in conflict. Both Dover and Sandpoint were proposing including that in our area of impact. So the contract planner for Dover came up and gave her best argument for the proposed area of impact for Dover, why she believed that McFarland property, as it's known in the south, should be included in Dover's area of impact. I proceeded to give a presentation kind of outlining the rationale behind our proposed area of impact. The basic principle that we pursued in this proposal was to only include areas that are currently served by city utilities in some way or another. So this includes the Syringa Water District, the North Side Water District, the Edelweiss Water District, that are not included in other city limits. So that was kind of the basis of our proposal. Also tying in, you see the jagged border on the left there. Of course, we included specific parcels along Upland up to Schweitzer Mountain Road, basically, and then down along Sand Creek. After that presentation, in which I explained our kind of methodology, I'll show you the motions that were made and the decisions that were settled on by the Bonner County Board of Commissioners. I love it when there we go, hide floating meeting controls. So here is, there were two motions made relating to this proposed area of impact. The first one being Commissioner Domke moved to amend the area of impact for City of Sandpoint to remove the disputed property. So that's that McFarland property down along between Ontario and Highway 2 down to the slough. A similar motion was made for Dover to remove the disputed property. In fact, the property owner had written a letter to the Bonner County Commissioners saying that they wished to be in neither area of impact. If they had to choose, they would choose the City of Sandpoint's area of impact. I felt really good about that. But the takeaway that the commissioners took was that they don't wish to be in either area of impact. So they granted the owners that wish. Okay. So the discussion continued. I went up to the dais a couple more times, responded to some more questions. There were concerns and questions about our ability to serve infrastructure to any of these areas in our now shrunken proposed area of impact. If you're interested, it was a good back and forth for a little while, but ultimately you can see the motion that was made to reject our proposed area of impact, even though it was 80% smaller than the existing area of city impact. Staff of both, planning staff for both Dover and Sandpoint were directed by the commissioners to come back with a proposal that only included areas that are, per state statute, very likely to be annexed within 5 years. So we came back and we discussed as a planning team, and there are some other areas that maybe our attorney can speak to in state code around the annexation procedures. And it's extremely rare, as we've discussed here, for cities to initiate annexation. Annexation is by state law now almost always going to be initiated by property owners. So we deliberated and we discussed whether, is there any area outside of our existing city limits that is very likely to be annexed by the city of Sandpoint in the next 5 years? And the answer is honestly no. Might some property owners immediately adjacent to Sandpoint pursue annexation by the city of Sandpoint? Possibly, but what's the purpose of us including it in some hypothetical area, not knowing who might wish to be annexed in the next 5 years? So that was a discussion we had. Ultimately, we settled on this proposal, which is just to eliminate our area of impact. And as we discussed in that meeting back in March, this is really just a planning tool. The only thing this is likely to mean is that we don't have that occasional opportunity to weigh in with planning department recommendations for development within an area of impact. Subdivisions that take place outside of city limits but might impact city infrastructure, for example. We're likely to still be noticed on those. We can provide comment, but even under the current state law, there's no obligation for the county to actually implement or to strongly consider any of our comments. So we can still continue to comment on those as other agencies do. We just won't have any sort of formal area of impact agreement with the county. It's basically taking a page out, literally a page out of our comprehensive plan, because there's one page in there showing that area of city impact map. So that's the proposal. We're going to become, I think, this is what the county commissioners desire for us to do. I have no doubt that they'll accept this recommendation from this body and from city council just to eliminate our area of impact. And I would also mention that we received quite a lot of letters up until last week, actually, from residents of our area of impact that are big fans of not being included in any area of impact for the city of Sandpoint. So given all that background, the proposal tonight is just to eliminate the area of impact. We're happy to open it up for discussion and hear from any members of the public who wish to weigh in.
There's that one question is, does that follow state law? Does that satisfy the state law?
Area of city impact?
Yeah.
Yes, I don't think there's any obligation in state law to have an area of impact. There are consequences of that. For example, annexation, even consensual annexation becomes more complicated. It's not that it can't be done, but it just becomes more complicated. But yes, there's no requirement to have an area of impact.
For the record, I think your mic isn't on.
I didn't pick that when Do I have to say this again?
I think you have to say it again. You could summarize it.
Okay. There's no obligation to have an area of impact. There are complications with not having an area of impact. For example, annexation, which was discussed, becomes more complicated because it's a prerequisite. Being a part of the area of impact is a prerequisite to annexation. It can be done. It's just a more complicated process.
So in theory, will a lot of other cities maybe take this avenue? Because it seems like in Idaho, this would be an unpopular thing everywhere.
Candidly, I don't know of any other cities that are taking this option. But I only represent other cities in Kootenai County and one other city in Bonner County.
Very well. Commissioners, any questions?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Simmons?
how often does a municipality look at this? Meaning, we shrunk it to 0. And I could foresee a world where that sort of gets like, you need to have that conversation with your adjoining municipalities. Don't you?
Zach, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe the new state statute requires us to consider our area of impact every 5 years.
Correct.
Yeah, so every 5 years by state law, but of course, we embarked on this in 2019 as part of our comp plan update. So we hadn't looked at it in at least 10 years when we started working on these proposals in 2019.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Are there, Are there cons to taking this approach?
By which you mean eliminating the area of impact?
Yeah, literally just saying, for the next 5 years, it's definitely zero, like
So-
nothing.
So the answer is yes. How significant the cons are is a question for you guys to answer. But for one thing, you can't annex without modifying the area of city impact. Now, there's nothing prohibiting the city from coming back and applying at any time
Yeah.
to the county commissioners to modify the area of impact. So should a property owner choose to consensually be annexed, they just have that process to go through as well. Other cons would be that we don't get notice of development that's happening in areas that are adjacent to the city that are providing services. Those are the big two that come to mind right away. I'm sure there are others.
Yeah.
But the area of impact has changed. The statute has changed so substantially in 2024 that it really watered down any authority that used to exist in the areas of city impact. And I think that's why city staff is moving in this direction, because there's just not the same amount of authority in those areas as it used to have.
Gotcha.
Commissioner Mitchell.
So for instance, that project off of Baldy Mountain Road where they're putting in 17 lots, like we got notice for that. We got to look at that proposal. Now they don't have to come and say, this is what we plan to do, even though they're going to be using the Syringa Heights water or the Syringa water system.
Correct.
But we didn't get it. But in that situation, I mean, because I'm new here, like have just it was just an advisory role, right? Like the county commission could do whatever they wanted.
Correct. So,
Okay.
yeah, you essentially made a recommendation to the county commissioners, and they could choose not to read it.
As a practical matter, we do enjoy getting notices from the county for developments that are far outside the area of impact as it currently sits. So we get things, south of the bridge, we get, all the time. So I think the county just has a practice of sending notices out to everybody.
And a follow up though, I mean, I know most of the letters that we were put in our package were, we don't want the area of impact, but the writers of those letters fundamentally misunderstand how annexation occurs to begin with.
Well, it's complicated. I can understand how they might misunderstand it. Yeah.
Right, but how do they, I wonder if eliminating the area of impact has negative consequences on, say, that development. Like, do they want to join the city and now they're not going to be able to because we have a county commission that maybe will not let us change change this the zero area of impact to a slightly larger one to consensually annex new development that's on the edge of the city.
And these are exactly the things we should be talking about. The burden that we have is guessing what would be very likely to annex and being able to prove that. And that's where the trail sort of ended for us on this. You could go through a protracted exercise to try to, survey people to say, well, who is very likely to try to petition this. Based on all the conversations we've heard here, the comment letters, doesn't sound like there's any interest at all for annexing into the city. So it was a relatively discreet analysis on our behalf, thinking, well, there's nobody that's petitioning this thing. No one has petitioned for many, many years to annex. So, and given the fact that it can happen at any time, somebody could come in and say, this is what I'd like to do. Procedurally more complicated, but it could be done.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Simmons.
So, just so I understand, is in the case of a private property owner who is interested in extending into being absorbed into the city, whose decision is that? He's interested, isn't it his decision?
So the answer, I guess for all practical purposes, because there are ways to have forced annexation, but they are very complicated, especially after the statute was amended in 2024.
I understand.
So first and foremost,
Yep.
the property owner would have to consent.
Yep.
And then the city would have to accept the annexation, and that's a
Understood.
discretionary call on the city. So it's both parts. Now,
Yep. That makes sense.
presumably the county would also have to agree to include that as an area of city impact
Really?
as a prerequisite to
Huh. So much for private
annexation.
property rights.
Uh,
Huh.
So, I mean, these are the things that are worth discussing. There are cons, Commissioner Mitchell, to go to your point. I don't want to speak for the property owners, but there are advantages to being in the area of city impact. I mean, it's a lot easier to subdivide. Property values could be a little higher if you're in the area of city impact, so on and so forth. And there's obviously higher taxes if you get annexed. I mean, those are all up to them, and we have to have a crystal ball essentially on who's going to be potentially asking us for annexation, and that's just not something we can do if we're applying the literal words of the statute, very likely to be annexed. So that's kind of where city staff is.
Gotcha.
Mr. Commissioner Reimar.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I see things in a simplistic form, but I mean, I think the people that don't want it kind of considered with the sovereign rights of property ownership and Idaho being what they are and how they're perceived, that they had a bit of a toe of a boot on their neck. And they're just saying no. And I agree with them.
Whose boots on their neck if the city can't forcibly annex them?
Well, I mean, it's a perceived,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, okay.
that's all.
Commissioners, any more deliberation? Yeah, I personally, I feel like them having an area of impact and not having an area, not a lot different either way. If somebody wants in, there's a route. And that's probably better than having a bunch of people in there who don't want to be in there. And then I keep thinking like the area of impact, even though we shrank it a bunch, there's still the properties that are on the edge of it far to the east that are the lowest chance by a greater amount the further away they're getting away from, the city limits. And really the only property owners that are like adjoining are the ones that are truly can make their own decision about if they want to be in or not. As soon as you get one property away, then two people have to be convinced, and then that's going to be a bigger challenge. So I don't know. I think not having it is probably not a huge negative for, at least for, what we're trying to do here.
I have just one, I think it's a comment really. One of the things I remember from the comp plan with respect to the shrunken area of city impact or area of impact is that there was some proposed zoning applied to that area. Is that correct? I mean, we had some conceptual idea that if this place over there became part of the city of Sandpoint, it could be used in certain ways and not in other ways, right? I mean,
I will say that when we started working on the comp plan in 2019, I don't think it contemplated the state statute that would come 4 years later. And when we were moving to final adoption of the comp plan, it was right around the time that the state was updating its statutes around area of impact. So right as we aspired to have perhaps some more jurisdiction outside of city limits on development, the state took away those.
no, it's nothing to do with jurisdiction. It's just the idea that if in the future, someone does say, my 100 acres, I want in the city of Sandpoint, right? Somebody says that. What's it zoned?
You're
But
referring
what
to the
concept do
future,
we
the
have?
future land use map and the context areas within our area of impact.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we will no longer have those in our comp plan after if.
So that's I guess, a potential negative because now we all got to scratch our head and say, what are we going to do with those 100 acres?
Well, keep in mind though, that what zoning took place in our area of impact was entirely up to county, has always been entirely up to the county. Those are just kind of aspirational to signal if we were to annex these in the future, what zoning might we apply?
That's exactly what I mean, right? So
But
all
that would
that's,
then be up to this body and the city council to determine if a future annexation were to take place.
And I'm good. That's the consequence of that legislation. If there were anything in there that enabled some reflection of efficient provision of utilities, land use planning, traffic patterns, if there were anything in that legislation, then we wouldn't be here suggesting we remove the AI, but there isn't. So there's nothing to suggest that we should be doing that they're interested in cities doing that. So that has been effectively removed with that legislation. So it comes truly down to the guessing game of who might want to annex in the next 5 years. And it's like, okay, well, that's just a guessing game.
I mean, and
Mitchell.
hypothetically, somebody could go through the county, make, start a development, then ask for annexation, and then by the time that the land is that 100 acres been replatted, you're done, right?
Yeah, whether or not those then owners want to petition for annexation would be an analysis that's very fact-based at the time.
You know, they can request annexation before they do anything with the land, right?
That's true,
Yeah. I
Yep.
mean, yeah, then they could say, I want an industrial park out there or something, you know.
right? And the city has, you know, that's a legislative act to act upon that. It's not like there's findings to make. It's whether or not you want to do it, you know, the city council. So, um, you know, that gets at the issue of what should it be in the future? And it's just, it's property owner initiated and cities responding to what they see and whether or not that's in keeping with what they think is good public policy at the time.
Okay, any more questions of staff? Okay, we'll now proceed with the public hearing. The rules that were previously stated, part of them, are in effect, and I would just say that we did do part of those, and then also, the part that I didn't mention was that city policy provides that the presiding officer may also allow gifted time during a public hearing, where you may gift your time to someone else. The person gifting the time may do so only once, and the person receiving the time may only receive one gift for a total of 6 minutes. If you're gifted time, please state as much when you begin to speak, and state the name of the person who gifted you the time. Both parties must be present. Otherwise, each speaker has 3 minutes. Rules of decorum, as cited earlier, are in effect, and public hearing is now open. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone signed up to speak, or are there any hands raised on Zoom?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Public hearing is now closed. Commissioners, you may ask questions of staff during your deliberation. And if you have nothing to ask, then I would look for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept it with the conditions described by the city in our pamphlet.
Commissioner Reimar has moved to approve. Any second?
That's approved to eliminate the area city impact.
Yes.
I'd second that.
Okay, Commissioner Benner second. Roll call vote?
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
Commissioner Remar,
Yep.
Commissioner Torpe,
Yes.
Commissioner Simmons.
Yes.
Commissioner Dunkel,
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchell,
Yes.
Commissioner Benner.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes.
All right. Next is the third and final public hearing of this evening and recommendation decision for amending the definitions in Sandpoint City Code relating to alleys and parking areas. Again, if you wish to testify, please complete a sign-up form and hand it to staff. Those on Zoom may testify if they wish. We will begin with staff presentation followed by commissioner questions. Then we'll open the hearing for public testimony. After the public hearing has been closed, we will proceed with commission deliberation and recommendation decision. I will now yield the floor to City Planner Bill D.
Thank you, Chair, so much. For the record, Bill Dean, this is a continuation of the discussion we've been having. Thank you for your work on moving forward in ordinance to overhaul the parking ordinance. As part of that last discussion, I made mention that we'd be coming back with a couple of minor tweaks to the definitions chapter of the code. It happens to reside in another section of the code, so we had to bring this back as a separate item. Should this move forward, we'll glue them together and take it to City Council as one ordinance. Part of the discussion we had last time related to, the overall, the parking ordinance, came down to some of the definitions weren't exactly clear. So there are 3 of them that we are proposing to amend. We did not look at the entire list of definitions to do an overhaul of that as a discrete exercise of what the definition of a lot is or a definition of of anything else other than things that were germane to parking. So we found 3 that were relevant. I will say, looking at what you see on the screen here is shown from the staff report in strike through and then red language being the new language. I will say, reading 913 alley, I suppose someone could read that to say an alley is defined as a public vehicle passageway, meaning the only things that can go on it are public vehicles. But I think by reading the rest of it, it's pretty clear. If we do want to get into the weeds on this particular definition, we could always just switch that to say a passageway, a public passageway for vehicles shown on the official plat of the city. That could be a little clearer. We amended the parking area to include parking area slash facility. As you recall, within the parking ordinance itself, sometimes it was referred to as an area, sometimes it was referred to as a facility. We understood that to be interchangeable, but to be very clear, we wanted to make sure that was abundantly clear here. So we amended the language as you see it right there. The last one is a little bit, Jason, if you could scroll down a little bit, please. We just the only thing we did with this definition is because the code already had a parking area private, a parking area public. I didn't tweak this definition of public parking other than to clarify that it meant facility as well. I thought it was a functional definition. The other one I thought needed some work. So this is the extent of the ordinance we're asking you to consider tonight. We're happy to talk about it. It's part of a larger effort that we've been working on for a while. I will say council at their last meeting did approve the parking management plan. And one of the implementing steps of that is going to be for council to evaluate the parking ordinance as a whole coming here in probably in August. We'd like to bring this along with it to the degree that you're satisfied with it. So this is really just a cleanup from the effort we've been working on with you since January. So with that, that concludes my brief presentation. Happy to entertain questions. I'll get into the language of these definitions and move on.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Reimar.
Yes, Bill. Yeah, where you have back here, well, just simply, alleyways have right-of-ways, right? City-owned right-of-ways? Is it, or are they private land sharing a common line in the center of the alleyway?
They're understood to be public. And that's throughout Sandpoint, they are public.
They are public?
Yes.
Okay, so what we're saying then in the as calling it a public vehicle passageway is that it has to remain open.
Correct.
Okay, so people cannot sit there and say, well, I'm going to change
That's
it into parking for my property.
Absolutely. That's right. So the reason why we made this change is because you see in there, prior it was defined as a street. And in other parts of the code, you could read it to suggest an alley was not a street. So we just want to clarify and have a very clear definition that a street is a street, an alley is an alley, and not have this sort of confusion between the two, because it's replete across the zoning and subdivision ordinances. Well, depending on how you read it, what is an alley? Is it a street or not? So we're making it very clear. It's a passageway for public vehicles. A street has very specific things attached to it. An alley's got a different set of things attached to it. And this clarifying the definition helps us implement those different things. But you're absolutely right. No one can close this off. It's not owned by private property. The code does say that elsewhere in the code, it does say that the property owners have the enjoyment and responsibility to maintain it. To trim the trees and things like that.
Okay, so, and then alleys don't have names?
I think some of them do. I think some of them don't.
Oh, I suggest alley-oop. Just kidding. That's all, the public vehicle passageway answer my questions. I just wanted to make sure that, it couldn't be encroached upon.
Correct.
That's all. Thank you.
Is it also available for pedestrians, bicycles?
Yeah. Yeah. Just like any street is.
Any more questions?
Not to be pedantic, but who has to clear what? So let's say you've got an alley running north-south, and halfway up, two adjoining neighbors, east-west, allow it to become overgrown. Who has to clear what? Does this
Well,
become just an enforcement issue?
The way the
like
code is
you
worded,
have
it's
to
the
clear it to the
the
center
adjoining property owner has to clear their,
up to the center line?
I'm not sure if it says up to the center line, but I think it said I think it goes so far as to say it's adjoining property owners, which would suggest the center line. Periodically we get calls about that, but that's, as a practical matter, that's how it works out. When people call, we say, yeah, you have the enjoyment and also the maintenance responsibility.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Commissioners, any more questions?
So are you gonna change it to public passageway for vehicles? Or are we gonna keep it like this?
I think that'd probably be better.
Okay.
Okay, we'll now proceed with the public hearing. The rules previously stated for public testimony are still in effect. Madam Clerk, are there anybody signed up to speak?
No, Mr. Chair.
Nobody on Zoom?
No, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Public hearing, once again, closed. Commissioners may ask questions of staff during our deliberation. Should be fairly straightforward. Be looking for a motion on this pretty quick.
Chair,
Yes.
I would move to approve the draft of this revised code as written. For us, yeah, I would recommend. Sorry. I guess I leave it at that. Is that?
You might say something like is on the screen right now.
I'm sorry, just for clarification, does that include the amended language for the definition of alley?
Yeah, correct.
So you might say, we would move to approve city council adopted ordinance as drafted with the amendment of the vehicle passageway instead of passageway for vehicles. Something like that.
Okay.
Got it.
All right.
Okay.
That's
We'll call that a
Made it.
motion. Collective motion.
I'll quickly second that motion.
Okay,
before you
Commissioner
second.
Benner seconded. Let's get a vote in here real quick too. Roll call.
Commissioner Mitchell,
Yes.
Commissioner Remar,
Yes.
Commissioner Simmons.
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
yes.
Commissioner Dunkel.
Yes,
Commissioner Benner,
Yes,
Commissioner Torpe.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes.
nice. 3 for 3. All right. So, we technically don't have any new business. We have no old business since the new business is going to be postponed to a future meeting. We get to move on to matters from city staff. Are there any general matters that staff would like to bring to our attention at this time? I'm gonna say your time is up. There's no matters from staff at this time. Commissioner roundtable at this time now. Any topics that the commission would like to discuss? Anything you like to ask in general of staff, or any announcements that you want to make known?
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Commissioner Simmons.
And this is about the area of impact, and it's sort of relative to Commissioner, it's a couple comments you made, Commissioner Torpe, in that I see a world where a city wants to think about their extended growth and what's the purpose to that growth. And area of impact seems like a pretty thoughtful way to have that conversation with at least the county and adjacent municipalities. So is a 5-year window the right sort of time frame to look at that? Probably. And so I don't know whose calendar to put that on, but I think it's probably a pretty good idea to come back to that sort of like, hey, do we need to look at this? It's a good idea. And it keeps with our notion of sort of thoughtful growth.
It's a good suggestion. I would also say that we can assess as needed in the future, right?
Fair. Yeah.
We'll know if there's
Yeah.
pressures and desires outside of city limits for
Yeah.
possible
Yeah.
annexation. And
Nothing's stopping you from.
yeah, we're not going to be caught off guard if oh wow, we should have thought about that area of impact issue.
Yeah.
Like that's something we are now very much cognizant of. So if there's market signals, for example, that there might be desire to annex from property owners outside of the city, staff will begin working on that proposal to reintroduce an area of impact
Right
in the
on.
county.
I'll just add a little bit to that. This is a dynamic area, right?
Yeah.
And Sandpoint's sort of the epicenter of this very fast-growing dynamic area. And we're very attuned to what's going on around us. It has an influence on everything that we all experience. So it's just part of our sort of the daily culture in the planning team to be mindful of these things. So as long as Jason and I are around, we're going to be talking about it a lot. And so I think you don't have to worry about it falling off our radar.
All right, on. Yeah, so I guess I'd ask, like, what's the purpose of the area of impact at all?
Well, I think prior it
Yeah.
had, I think prior it had
Like, what's the-
it had some meaning. It had some,
Yeah, but why even have any language anywhere around it for any purpose?
So before the amendment, I'd say the purpose was to have ordered growth.
Totally get it.
So, but
Yeah.
after, frankly, I'm kind of throwing my hands up
Got it.
with that same.
All right. So
There-
we'll have an
there-
interesting conversation perhaps in 5 years.
And there are cities in Idaho that are actively pursuing annexation of areas outside of their city limits.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, down in the Boise area, this is
Oh,
where
okay.
things happen
All right. I could,
very aggressively.
Got
Yeah,
it.
even in, I mean, there's,
interesting little.
competition for
Right.
unannexed areas, unincorporated areas of Kootenai County right now as well, where adjacent cities are
Fighting
fiercely
over.
pursuing annexation of those unincorporated areas. So yeah, maybe it's a little unique to Bonner County.
How does that get arbitrated ultimately then? I mean, it's the county property owner municipalities.
Yeah, that's right. And sometimes the courts, if it has to go that route, but basically, a lot of it is driven by this whole concept of that's sort of phrased the fiscalization of land use, right? When there's a tax base associated with land use or something that a community thinks is going to, enable them to have additional revenues, property tax wise or otherwise, they'll fight for it. It's this idea that sort of growth is a panacea in some respects as it relates to budgets, and that can drive a lot of these decisions. So that's why you see communities argue for it. But each jurisdiction is a little bit different in terms of its tax structure locally, so it's going to be highly variable. But that's really what drives a lot of it. I don't think it's because somebody. I think that's really what's at the heart of it.
Got it.
Bonner County and Sandpoint are a little unique as well. If you think about even just south in Kootenai County, you've got these 4 or 5 cities that have grown exponentially in the last 10 years. And there are some pockets of unincorporated areas that might have a single landowner or a couple of landowners, 400 or 600 acre parcels with a giant developer who owns it. Very important whose area of city impact that is in, right? Are you going to be in Rathdrum? Are you going to be in Athol? Are you going to be in Post Falls or Hayden? So they're all kind of, it's a much hotter topic in Kootenai County than it is up here, where we're surrounded by unincorporated county, rather than Kootenai County, where unincorporated counties are surrounded by cities. It's the exact inverse up here. We're surrounded by thousands of acres of unincorporated areas.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, and things change.
Change.
One of my first meetings here, we talked about the area of city impact, which I believe was being changed to area of impact. And it was even a thing because the state mandated that cities did it. And I remember first seeing the map, and it was, it's really, really big. And we talked about changing it then. And so, and then the comp plan came up, and then all these other things have happened. And then the state legislature has, decided for us after all the emphasis, how much work was put in.
And the county commissioners, of course,
Yeah, and then the state.
ultimately decided for us. Yeah.
Yeah, and then elections and so forth change the climate, and I think in our area, I think people possibly move to this area so that they're not in a city. And a lot of Bonner County is rural, and they want to keep it that way. And so it feels like a city is growing, is encroaching on their rural livelihood, which I totally get. I have property in the city and property out of the city, and I don't want them to, I love them to be separated in a way. So in 5 years, it could be totally different. So
Yeah.
whoever's still here in 5 years, remember,
Yeah.
remember
Better catch
this.
something.
Like the airport overlay, that changed early on too. And I was just thinking that I think in 2009, the comp plan was revised, and then it took essentially 15 years for it to get done again. And I think the recommendation is about 10 years. So we're kind of like, we skipped one almost, because
Yeah.
I think in 2009 it was like 15 years over, like it was 10 years overdue or something like that. So
Someone shared an article with me from 1976 of the very first comprehensive planning effort at the city of Sandpoint. And there were death threats made to the person in your chair right now.
Really?
Yeah, members of city residents were so fiercely opposed to having a comprehensive plan that took away what they perceived it as taking away their property rights, that there were rocks thrown through the window of, or bricks thrown through the window of the home of the planning commission chair, threatening to never impose a comprehensive plan on. Yeah, so there's a long history of what we're talking about here tonight.
We'll make a bet that was Ray Miller.
That was pre-Miller.
Pre-Miller?
Yeah.
I didn't know there was. any
Well,
such
maybe,
thing.
maybe he was the planning chair then.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
could be, yeah.
Later the mayor.
I'll have to ask him.
And I can remember all that because the county was working on theirs at the same time.
Okay, we've had enough fun. Let's adjourn at 7:05. Thank you.